Minnesota could convert on third down. The Eagles' corners had a great game last night, specifically Slay, obviously, but I thought Maddox played great. You talked about the pressure.
Mike Gill, back in the house. We usually recap games on Monday. Well, we made an exception today. I made a quick phone call into Gill. Gill responds. He delivered just like Jalen Hurts did last night. How you doing, Mike?
Feeling good. I got to bed sometime after 1 o'clock. I'm up and ready to go. Got my coffee. The old Dub V mug coming up big for me today.
I'll tell you what, Mike. I just want your initial thoughts on this game. Just an incredible performance by Jalen Hurts and Darius Slay last night.
Yeah. Now I will say, as much as we were frustrated and had questions about last week, I think this is the ultimate look. It's a week-to-week thing. Does that mean Jalen Hurts is going to come out looking like the MVP of the league every single week? No. But what you hope is that he has some sort of consistency to start building on top of that, where you feel like they're winning because that he is a part of why they're winning, right? Not, what's Jalen Hurts going to give me? You can now see the level he can play at. And that's an exciting thing about last night is he could dial up a game like that at any point. Throws the ball down the field. He showed that he had the arm. I thought he hit a lot of tight windows. He hit receivers in stride. He had accuracy, decision-making. He was patient last night. He didn't just take off. I thought you saw a complete game from him. Does that mean you're going to get it every single week? No. But I think that's why, as fans, we want to break down and dissect every moment in front of us in this social media era. But you got to take a step back and understand, last week, we're complaining they gave up 35 points against Detroit. The defense stinks. John Gannon has to go. Well, we talked about it on my show yesterday. John Gannon didn't call an awful game. They didn't execute. If they tackle, the game is different. And last night, did he call a great game? I think he called a similar game. He threw some more pressure at times. He had the pulse, and I talked about it last week. I said it's like getting a present on Christmas, ripping open the box, and not reading the directions. And then once you play with that toy for a little bit, you're like, I got to read the directions. I don't know what the heck I'm doing here. Well, I think he read the directions a little and had the pulse of his personnel a little bit better in week number 2. So it was an overall complete effort from the quarterback all the way down to the coaching staff last night.
Fletcher Cox said it best when I was at his locker last night. It was pretty much the same thing. We executed better. And I think he meant to say, look, we tackle better. And the Eagles took advantage of the Vikings being terrible on the interior of the offensive line. You saw that with Cox last night. You saw that with Hargrave. Jordan Davis, I don't even know how much Jordan Davis played last night. I'll have to check.
21 snaps.
21 snaps. So basically,
the same 21 snaps he played the week before.
Yeah. So, you're right, Mike. Nothing really changed. And Fletcher Cox kind of pointed that out last night. It's, look, they tackled. They made the plays in the red zone. And, yeah, did the Eagles have a couple lapses on defense? Yeah, not yes and no. I think they let the Vikings get their yards, but when push came to shove, Minnesota couldn't do anything.
Minnesota could convert on third down. The Eagles' corners had a great game last night, specifically Slay, obviously, but I thought Maddox played great. You talked about the pressure. They didn't blitz a whole heck of a lot, but they did pick their spots. And when they blitzed, they sent pressure up the middle a lot, which is the weakness of the Vikings line. You saw TJ Edwards getting some push up the middle. But overall, that's the difference. You talk about what you saw from Detroit. Detroit's skill players aren't as good as Minnesota's, but Detroit's line's better. And that gave the Eagles a little bit of problems getting more pressure. The Vikings' offensive line has always been their issue, and it forces Cousins into mistakes, and it forces him into decisions that he doesn't want to make. He threw that ball up where he just gets it out because he's just got pressure in his face, and that comes from the pressure coming from up the middle. So we talked about it, I think maybe last week, or maybe I was with Jody and John. If we're talking on Tuesday that the Eagles didn't get enough pressure up the middle, then that's a problem. And last night they got pressure up the middle. They didn't have to compromise by blitzing. And because they didn't have to compromise, they had great coverage in the secondary. That's the trade-off. If you blitz and they catch you, you are left in the back end with less guys. The Eagles didn't have less guys last night. They had guys all over the place swarming, breaking up third down. So, again, we go back to the John Gannon thing. I think a little bit of his execution, what I'd like to see more. Look, if you're not getting enough pressure, you got to manufacture it somewhere. So there are weeks. If you play Detroit and their offensive line is neutralizing you, all right, you might have to send some more pressure. But when you're playing Minnesota and their line's not as good, then you can pick your spots, and then you see that the defense actually does work a little bit. Now, conversely, Minnesota runs the same defense, and they got torched last night. Why? Because the Eagles' line at the point of attack just dominated. They dominated up front last night. The Eagles' offensive line absolutely destroyed Minnesota, and their defense sat back in that zone, and Hurts just had a field day. But we saw that Hurts can have a field day. If you're going to let him throw, he's going to pick you apart, and that was refreshing to see. But Minnesota runs a similar style of defense, and it didn't work for them last night. It's all about execution.
And this is where I definitely – how can I put this in words? So I tweeted this earlier. Minnesota had 18 pressures last week against Green Bay. Green Bay's
line is iffy.
Yeah, and they didn't have their top two tackles, right? They didn't have Jenkins, and they didn't have Bakhtiari. So that makes a big difference. They had, I think it was 7 quarterback hits, 5 sacks. I forget the exact numbers in front of me. The Eagles only allowed 7 pressures the entire night. So I'm looking at it as, okay, they're facing a healthier offensive line. I did not hear Darius Smith's name last night. I forgot he was even on the Vikings. Danielle Hunter, I knew was on the Vikings because he did get a sack, although that was more of, a botched play more than anything else. But overall, though, like outside of a Patrick Peterson, like play or two, the Vikings defense was pretty much non-existent.
Non-existent. The only existence they had is that the Eagles had 7 penalties or something ridiculous. The illegal man down field. You might see that once or twice a year. They had it 3 times last night. One was egregious. Sure. The other ones were. They got to clean that up. But the offensive line was I thought was a big difference in the game. I tweeted this out with about 8 minutes left in the third. 24/7, this is where the Eagles offensive line can just crush your will because they can just drive block you off the ball and you can run the game out. If the Eagles are up 24-7 with that offensive line, they should be able to run a game out. And in fact, they should have run the game out. And that was when they threw the ball, the screen to Gainwell, and Gainwell kind of bounced off his hands and Minnesota got the interception. So they're trying to do something kind of safe. And Gainwell kind of bounced off his hands. But their offensive line, if the Eagles can get a lead, you can run behind that line and almost run a quarter and a half out of a game to shorten games up. That makes them very difficult. So I thought the line was a big factor. They don't get a lot of credit. Jason Kelce was ridiculous last night. They showed the one where he's blocking a guy. He gets off the block and then blocks another guy, and Hurts follows him up there. And, I mean, you're getting just such athleticism up the field to kind of extend plays. The line was a huge factor. But keep in mind, we talked last week. Well, A.J. Brown had 13 targets. Well, last night they showed they can spread it around and the other guys can beat you too. If you're going to let Devonta Smith sit in zones all night, he's going to torture you.
It almost felt like the passing game was a death by 1,000 cuts, Mike. Like you said, Devonta Smith torches you. A.J. Brown got open. Dallas Goedert got open. And then all of a sudden, you just see them have a lapse in coverage, and Quez Watkins is open by 20 yards. I just remember watching that play from the press box. I'm like, how did he get that open? And I'm like, I hope, Hurts saw him because he got rid of the ball. And
if you saw, Jeff, there was a play, Minnesota, the tight end who's wearing 84, who should has no business wearing. What's that?
Smith.
Smith, right. Who has no business wearing Randy Moss's number, by the way. Disgraceful. That's a disgrace that anybody's wearing 84. And it shows you because they ran a play and Smith dropped that pass. He was wide open. But why? Because the Eagles defense had their eyes on Justin Jefferson, and that froze everybody. Conversely, the Eagles, same thing. They ran that play to Watkins, and everybody stopped for Goedert and looked where Goedert went, and Watkins just ran right by everybody. And that's the game. That's the throw that Hurts shows you that he can make the big-time throw if necessary. 53 yards, bang down the field. Probably not even his best throw of the night, but he hits him right there at the end zone, wide open. But all the attention is at Goddard, and it shows you when you have all these weapons that the defense, you're going to catch them maybe once or twice a game where there's a blown coverage or there's too much emphasis on one guy and then the other guy runs past you. You're going to see a lot of that this year.
Mike, this whole performance from Hurts, not just running the ball, but running the ball. That 3rd and 6, it's like, okay, you got the first down. Great run. Not only does Hurts do that, he spins past a defender and then just uses his legs, just basically uses the old football adage, the low man wins, gets into the end zone. To me, that's grit. That's determination. Yeah. That is everything you want from a Philadelphia athlete right there. And Jalen Hurts provided it. I just don't understand how you can hate the guy after a run like that.
That's a good point. How can you hate the guy? Well, because he's not the guy you want him to be. I used to say about McNabb, the guy is great. He's just not the great you want him to be. Hurts could be similar, where he's a great quarterback. He's just not the great that you want. And a lot of people want their great quarterback to be, 6'4", long, standing in the pocket, just delivering passes, pitching and catching all game. That guy is a dying breed. Look at the football world we're living in. On Thursday nights, we're firing up Amazon Prime. We're doing things in a completely different fashion. We have to evolve with the times. You have to evolve and realize right now, look at these quarterbacks in the league and then ask yourself, which of these things are doing their own thing? Tom Brady is doing his own thing. Aaron Rodgers, he's doing his own thing. The rest of the guys look a lot more like Jalen Hurts. So last night, we were asking on my show yesterday, who would you rather have, Hurts or Cousins? Cousins is your classic stand in the pocket, deliver the football. No one's really enamored with him all that much. If we could just shift our minds to this is what we're watching. Now, I'm not saying that Hurts is a finished product. He's not a great quarterback today, right now. But I think we're starting to see that it is in there, that there is a great player in there. Now it's about consistency. We talked about it on my show and maybe even yours yesterday, which is these guys aren't ready to play. They come into the league. They didn't play enough college football. They used to stand on the sidelines and watch. Now they're getting thrown right into the league. The game is moving so fast. They're making so many mistakes. And the coaches are now coaching with the premise that my quarterback's not ready. So I have to coach in a way that I know my guy's not ready to play this position. You go look at guys like Justin Fields. Look where Murray is. Even Kyler Murray, he's still just running around making plays. Yeah, when he gets time, he can deliver one. But these offensive coordinators, they're not designing plays anymore where you're like, okay, read your first guy, read your second guy, read your third guy. They're saying, if that guy's not there, go to the next guy and get it out, right? They're not even teaching these guys how to play quarterback anymore. So Jalen Hurts, I think, last night showed you that there is greatness in there, but it's got to be about consistency now. How many weeks in a row can he pile that type of performance up?
I've talked to Justin Herbert quite a few times over the years, and I'll just say this. He loves Shane Steichen. He said Shane Steichen did so much for him his rookie year, telling him this, exactly what you said, Mike, just telling him your second read, your third read, make sure to do it, and taking the pressure off him running the ball. Guess what? Shane Steichen is doing that with Jalen Hurts. You can tell Steichen is teaching Hurts a lot about the game of football and just intricacies. During the game, before the game, after the game, it's Jalen Hurts is a smarter quarterback because of Shane Steichen. And I'm afraid, Mike, because if Shane Steichen keeps up this play calling and keeps up what he's doing over the last 2 years, he's going to be a head coach next year.
Well, I saw somebody tweet last night that Shane Steichen's gone. I forget who it was, but I laughed. I said, if the Eagles' offense looks like this consistently, you're not going to look like that every single week. And quite frankly, they put up 31 points last week. They 38, but 7 came from defense. They scored 31 points last week, and we were not happy with what the offense. I didn't care, but they didn't spread it around enough. Okay, you didn't spread it around enough. Next week, I'll throw it to every single guy. The first drive was a thing of beauty. It was like, we don't spread it around enough. All right, first drive, let's dial up this 15-play scripted sheet. I'm going to throw it to every single guy on the field. Yes, if Shane Steichen keeps dialing up game plans like this. Now, I'll ask you, are you, I don't want to say concerned, but any bother that we're talking about this, how good the offense looked? They didn't score in the second half. Is that a problem?
I'll tell you what, to me, it would have been a problem today until you got guys like Jalen Hurts who go up to the podium and say, not satisfied. I'll tell you what I'm not satisfied about. We left money on the table. It wasn't good enough. And I just think as long as they have that leadership in that room, a guy who keeps that team grounded, guys like him, guys like Jason Kelsey, Lane John, Jalen Hurts sounds like he's been in the league for 10 years. No, he'll find anything that bothers him.
Yeah, well, that's the starting point for Hurts. He came into this league a veteran in that. I remember we used to have an argument or debate on my show about being a leader. And the thought of, if you're a leader, can you just walk into a new locker room and be a leader right away? Or do you have to ease yourself into a new locker room? And I always said, no, if you're a leader, your traits are being a leader. You walk right in and take control of the room, whether you know these people or not. Why? Because that's your personality. Like, you are a leader. A leader doesn't wait his turn. He doesn't put his toe in the water and decide whether or not the water is warm. He jumps right in. At least that's the way I see it, right? I can't remember who we were talking about that was this leader that we were like wondering when he was going to be taking control of the locker room. I'm like, if he hasn't by now, he's not a leader. The leader comes right in. Jalen Hurts, soon as he got that starting job or got the opportunity, he was the leader. That we always knew. So he was a veteran. We talk about these quarterbacks not being ready to play on the field. There was one thing he was ready for, and that was to take command of a team. And now that shines even brighter because his play is now, I don't want to say mirroring it, but it's gaining steam on his leadership.
I'll tell you one thing. Maybe this is why I like Hurts so much. Hearing stories from his father, Avarian Hurts, who was a football coach. He grew up in that mindset. He grew up around that. Every situation, every scenario. Like last night, you don't even bring it up to him. And what the first thing he says, I remember the embarrassment of Monday Night Football last year. He remembered that blowout game against the Cowboys, when the Cowboys, everybody was questioning him left and right. Everybody was questioning that football team. Jalen Hurts used that as motivation last night. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to show the world on the national stage, I've arrived. We've arrived. This is our time. This is our moment. We are not going to let the Minnesota Vikings take what's up. I can imagine what Jalen Hurts says in a locker room to get you fired up. It's
weird because he seems like such a mild-mannered guy. It seems like there's almost no fire in him, but it's very Brian Dawkins, where Dawkins, was a very mild-mannered guy off the field, and then you threw him through that tunnel and he was, Wolverine. I mean, it was crazy to see the transformation. I think Hurts is the right temperament for this particular team. It's a younger team, but you got some veterans mixed in, but the veteran guys are already saying, man, this, when you would ask anybody about Hurts last year, you never heard, man, this guy slings it, or he's got an arm, or he can make plays. He's a leader. That was definitive from the jump. So he has won over this group from the young players all the way, from the veterans all the way down to the young players. That is undoubted. Now, I want to go back to the comment I made about not scoring in the second half. There's two ways to look at this, right? Are they running the game out? Like I mentioned, run the ball, shorten the game. You could say, yeah, they're trying to run the clock out, and that's admirable, but would you have liked to seen them maybe put their foot on the neck and try to take some shots and just bury that team?
And Hurts said that too. I'll say this. The first drive they had in the second half, very good drive, very conservative drive, that, just running the clock down, moving the chains, getting first down. I think they ran like 6-7 minutes off the clock right away. And, I'm tweeting about the tweet, okay, field goal. And, this is going to be good. Now they're going to be up 27-7. And pretty much everything happened there except for the blocked field goal, and Aaron Supus probably made the play of the game by taking away all momentum for the Vikings.
He did, yes. And by the way, laces were in, no good. But the kick got blocked anyway. But yes, what a momentum killer right there. They get the block. The ball goes perfectly the opposite direction. Patrick Peterson, your all-world corner, picks it up, and he gets tackled by the holder. I mean, boy, oh boy, what a way to deflate the tires. Because if he takes that to the house there, we got a completely different game. And then they got the opportunity on the Gainwell interception and couldn't score either. Slay ended up getting in it. Slay could have had 6 interceptions last night. I mean, this is why you play corner and not wide receiver. But man, oh man, what a game he had.
So funny story. After the game, right? James Harden's waiting for Darius Slay. And I'm taking pictures of James Harden. First thing he says to Slay, they give each other a hug. Man, you should have had 3 or 4 picks. and that's the first thing he says to him. And they're chatting. He goes and hugs Jalen Hurts too. But man, he's right. Like Darius Slay had so many picks. I'm like, oh, pick. Oh no, okay. Darius Slay dropped it. And before the game too, Mike, Jalen Hurts. I take Jalen Hurts throwing the ball to Darius Slay, and I'm like, is this a sign of what's to come tonight? Is Darius Slay going to get a big offensive play? Well, no, he made a couple of big defensive plays, but I mean, overall, you got to be happy with the result. They're 2-0. They look like they're one of the best teams in the NFC.
I can't listen. And look, I have been someone over the years here, so I have never been a Howie Roseman hater. I feel like Roseman, you've got one of the best GMs. Does he have his moments? Does he make mistakes? 1,000%. But he has put together a roster. People don't like John Gannon. I have been steadfast on. I think Gannon's a smart guy. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he just needs to kind of learn his. I don't think he had very good personnel last year. I think he has better personnel this year. And if they didn't have a performance like last night, I think we would have been questioning them. That performance is there. They have that in them. And that's a good offense that they shut down last night. So be patient with John Gannon. Let him kind of get the feelings of what he can do with Kaiser White and Bradbury and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who we just got there, 2 days ago, how to rotate his guys. I think he's getting a feel of how much can I use my tackles? How much can I use Josh Sweat to get the most out of him? How much can I use Brandon Graham coming off that injury? All this is fluid. So, and Jalen Hurts, I got into it with a guy on Twitter all offseason. We got to get Russell Wilson. You got to get someone else. I said, look, the Eagles are not at the time thinking Super Bowl. They're thinking, is this our franchise quarterback? Give him another year. If you get 2 full seasons and at the end you decide he's not the guy, you have draft capital to make a move, make a trade, go out and get whoever you kind of want to target. The impatient nature of people is completely opposite of the way I think. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic, but I think you saw it all last night and all this offseason. Roseman does do a good job. Gannon does have it in him, and Jalen Hurts does have it in him. You just have to not judge them every single game, but a bigger pie.
This before I let you go, Mike, the thing I'm rooting for this year, if you're an Eagles fan, this is what you should be rooting for too. Jalen Hurts has a big year like he did last night, just carries that over, and the Eagles win a lot of games because they're going to have 2 first-round picks, and all of a sudden the rich are going to get richer.
Well, I'll leave you with this. Before the season, we all did one bold prediction for this Eagles season, and my bold prediction was that Jalen Hurts will win over the fans, and the fans will be hoping he signs that big $40 million a year contract, because I think he's going to have that kind of year.
Mike, I got to let you go. Obviously, got to get your kids to school. Once again, I really appreciate you for coming on. I know short notice with the quick turnaround with the game and stuff, but that's why you're the man, Mike Gill.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you.